I am Mary. I want to talk about my son. It's been so long, so long. I have pondered these things in my heart. I'm the only one who knew him from the cradle to the cross. But old age, it washes the colors of one's life until they become pastel. Old age nibbles at the corners of my memory. But Luke listens to me. Luke helps me remember. Luke even gave me markings for my story. It was I who held him to my breast and smelled those sweet, sweet smells of baby, and felt his hair and smelled those baby smells. Is there anything so wonderful as the smell of a new baby? And his little hands, the fingers just curled around mine. It was I who held him at the cross. I felt his hair sticky with blood. I saw his hands bloodied, torn, and the smell of death, the blood, the tears and the urine. Is there anything like the smell of death? So I will tell the story. Where did it begin? I was just a snip of a girl, just a tiny one, 12, 13. I remember when Joseph first came to see my father, I hid and I listened. I remember how Sarah listened when the angels talked with Abraham. And I couldn't believe they were talking about me, about my betrothal. They came to agreements, and I was betrothed. It was like being married. Had Joseph died, I would have been a widow. Oh, I was so excited. I would live with my father and my mother for a year of betrothal, and then the wedding service, and then I would go to live with Joseph. Father read to me all those scriptures about the perfect wife in Proverbs how she spun and she spent her money wisely, and her husband and her children rose up to call her blessed. Oh dear, how could I ever hope to be like her? But I would try. I would try. And then the angels started. The first angel, it was when I was out back of my parents' home, doing the washing and hanging the things over the bushes to dry, and I lay down to look at the sky and watch the clouds, and I felt overshadowed. And a voice that I didn't hear with my ears spoke into my heart and said, "Hail, Mary." And this voice told me that I would have a babe, the Son of the Most High. Oh, was I hearing right? I mean, every Jewish girl always would dream of being the mother of the Messiah, but me? Who should I tell? Who should I tell? Elizabeth. And I ran to Elizabeth, and she threw her arms around me and I around her, and I felt her baby kick. And we sang a magnificent song. Us two women singing a song like that of the proud being brought low and the poor being raised up and the hungry sent away, the rich sent away hungry, and the poor lifted up. Oh. We sang and we talked, and Elizabeth told me about babies, about birth, about the things she had been through before me. We parted, and I went home, and I needed to tell Joseph about what was happening. I was so excited, and I met him, and oh my, he wasn't excited at all. How could I explain? He said he would put me away quietly. Oh, the shame of my family. But you know, Joseph had his angel, and everything was made right. And he took me very quietly to be his wife. We moved in to make a home, and life was simple. People talked some, but I liked being his wife. And I felt my baby growing. Those were good days. And as it came close to my time, I had to leave home. Joseph said we had to go to Bethlehem to be counted. And I didn't want to leave home. I wanted to stay at home. I wanted to have my baby at home. I didn't want to be in some strange place. But Joseph said it would be all right, and he would take care of me. We took a long and very uncomfortable journey. And I was so very great with child. There was no place to stay. It was a noisy town. Sleepy little Bethlehem wasn't sleepy that night. There was noise, the tavern was full, the hotels were full, and I could tell I was very full. Joseph went, and he found an innkeeper who said, "Now out back, there is a cave. There's fresh straw. Take your wife. Let her sleep." And I did. I rested, and labor began. How strange it is. We forget so quickly when that babe is laid in our arms. We forget so quickly the pain of labor, the fear of labor. And he was born. And just as my milk came in, so did the shepherds. I really wanted quiet. And these noisy shepherds came in, and they were so excited. They said, "We saw angels in the sky." And about that time, I was really beginning to believe in angels. They said, "We saw angels in the sky, and they told us where to come, and a new king would be born. And we have come." And they knelt, and they were very dear, simple people. And Joseph made them welcome. And then they left. And this is where it's hard to remember, but I'll just tell it as I do. It was time to go to the temple. And Joseph and I entered rather quietly. The temple was noisy again. And we were met by two old people. Old Simeon. Old Simeon was a rather frightening fellow. He took the baby and he smiled and said, "Lord, now let me die in peace, for I have seen the light to the Gentiles." I liked that part, but then he told me that a sword would pierce my heart, and I was so frightened. But Anna came, and Anna said, "Oh, he will be a fine child. He is for the Israelites." And then Joseph and I left rather quickly. I was uncomfortable with these people. I didn't understand. And we went back to rest. Oh, and my goodness sake, I almost forgot. The Magi. How could I forget them? The Magi came, and they brought the most wonderful gifts. And we certainly needed those gifts to pay for our time and our food and our lodging as the future unfolded. They had seen a star, and they had followed the star, and it had come and lighted over Bethlehem. They'd stopped by to see Herod. That didn't make me feel good at all. And Herod had said, "Now you be sure to come back here and tell us where the babe is." But they had their own dreams and their own directors. And when they left a different way. But the angels weren't through with us. The angels weren't through at all, because Joseph dreamed that we must go to Egypt. that our lives were in danger, the baby's life was in danger, many babies' lives were in danger. And so we went. I rode holding the baby, and now we were the three, to Egypt. I wanted to go home so badly, to just be home, to sweep my house, to cook my meals, to nurse my babe, to love my husband, and have the days roll in beautiful, normal hours. Finally, the day came when we could go back. Oh, those were good days. We traveled fast to get back home. We couldn't wait to show Jesus to our friends, this child. Ah, Nazareth. How lovely to hear that name. To be at home, to fix lunch and let Joseph go into the carpenter's shop and work. And Jesus, he loved to follow his daddy. And he would watch him saw and pound and shave and sand. The two were almost inseparable. And then other children came. We were getting quite a family. And my son was growing up, almost 12. And we knew that we would have a very special time when he was 12. We were going to Jerusalem, to the temple. We talked about it and planned for it. I baked for it. I packed for it for weeks in advance. And friends went with us. It was a wonderful caravan of friends. We gossiped. We sang around the fires. We talked. It was such fun. And when we got to Jerusalem and saw the temple, we were speechless. The whole crowd was quiet. We went in, we prayed, and as the time passed, we gathered together and we headed home. And the first night out, we were so giddy. We sat around the campfire, we cooked and talked, and Joseph said to me, "Mary, where is Jesus?" And I said, "He is with you, is he not?" And Joseph said, "No." And I said, "Oh." And we ran through our friends and we looked. We couldn't find him anywhere. I was ready to just rush back to Jerusalem. And Joseph said, "Mary, be still, be quiet. We must wait till morning. It is too dangerous to go at night." I didn't sleep. Not a bit. The next morning we woke at dawn. I simply slept or stood or sat in my clothes and jumped up and followed Joseph in. We looked. Where would he be? Where would he be? We went back to the temple, and I had to wait outside, and Joseph went in, and he found Jesus asking questions of the teachers. And he brought him out, and he said, "Mary, I found him." "Well, let me tell you, son, you may be 12 years old, but You cannot treat your parents this way. No good Jewish boy would put his mother and father through this kind of agony. Don't you ever do this to us again. And he answered something about his father's business. We went back to Nazareth, and days turned into weeks and months and years. The children grew. Jesus grew in stature and in favor with God and all our neighbors. Joseph died. And I was a widow. And Jesus took over the head of the family. He was a good boy, a good young man, a good man. He would be there for me. And then the surprise of my life. He came to me one day and said, "Mother, I am leaving." And I felt my heart go sad. How could he leave? This is his home. This is where he belonged. He now was head of the household. He needed to stay with me, to see me to my grave. "Mother, I'm going." And he left. Then there was a wedding. Now, I love weddings. Maybe I love weddings because mine was so small, so quiet. But I always dressed for weddings. I wore my finest, and I pretended it might have been mine. It was in Cana. And Jesus came, and he brought his friends, and we were having a wonderful time. Weddings are so long that I wearied. 7, 8, 9 days we partied. But we had some big drinkers at this wedding, and the wine ran out. Now, this is a terrible embarrassment to a host, to the father of the bride. And I took Jesus aside and I said, "Son, can't you do something about this?" And he said, "Mother, this isn't my time." And I said, "Jesus, do something." And he said, "All right, get those jars and let's fill them with water." And something happened. Something new began. They were filled with the best wine yet. And some of the guests rushed to the host and said, "Did you mix up your wine and give us the best last? We wouldn't have known the difference." He was surprised, and I was so proud. I didn't understand it all, but I was so proud. And Jesus left, and I went home. Some of the children had gone with me, and they took me home. We heard about Jesus. Off and on, the people would come by on the trading roads, and they would tell of this man who told stories about his heavenly Father, about a kingdom not of this earth. A man who made the authorities angry. This just bothered me. I decided we needed to go find him. We needed to see what was going on. I asked some of the children to come with me, and we went to where a crowd had gathered, and he was so far back. I couldn't reach him, so I sent word, your mother and your brothers and your sisters are here. And I could see the ripple go through the crowd up to where he was. And then he said, who are my mothers? Who is my mother, and who are my brothers and sisters? Well, I am. I'm your mother. And he went on to say, whoever does the will of my Father, these are my family. And I was confused, and I must say my feelings were hurt. And we left and went home. Jesus came home one time. I remember that. He came home and he went to the synagogue and he read and he spoke of the scriptures being fulfilled in him. And I looked at the faces of people from where I stood with the women, and I heard the men talking, and they were angry. And then they got so angry, they began to rush at him. And he slipped away, and I was very embarrassed. They didn't understand him any better than I did, but I loved him, and they didn't. I've lost track of the time. But it was spring, and it was time for the Passover. And James came to me and he said, Mother, we need to go to Jerusalem. I have heard that Jesus has been arrested. And James took me by the arm. And I could tell by his voice that he wasn't telling me everything. And he took my hand and we went into the city. And then we were led out to a hill. And I saw him and he was hanging on a cross. Son, my son, how did this happen? Why did you let it go so far? You could have come home and you could have read in the scripture in the synagogue, and you could have been a rabbi. You could have studied the scriptures. This didn't have to happen. Why did it come to this? My child, my child, my child. Oh God, why? Why has this happened? Why have you taken him? If you knew what it was like to be a parent, you would not let this happen. Oh God, I give him back to you.